we would like you to do is to learn to react to the vibration before it's a condition. In other words, we want you to react. It's like if you're driving and the bumps on the road let you know that you're going off the road into the ditch. We want you to react from the information. And so getting yourself in alignment is about reaction, isn't it? It's about using your guidance system. How could anyone effectively use their guidance system if they're not reacting to the guidance or adjusting to the guidance? So when you talk about reacting, if you are talking about reacting to a comment or reacting to a situation, we want to say it's natural that you would, it's just a little too late. Because once it has come so far that you're having that experience, of course, then the reaction becomes part of your experience. So it really is about catching it earlier. It's about caring about the way you feel and catching it as early as you can, yes?
I've been using meditation as a practice for...
That's a really good way to practice a vibration.
How do I tell the difference, between that gut feeling and that head and those different thoughts that are coming in on maybe a decision to make or something to go for?
We've been talking a lot about inspiration. But we want to remind you all here today that that feeling of inspiration is that feeling of being called. It's really a feeling of momentum. So you can be inspired from the receptive mode, from the receiving mode, from source, or you could be inspired from your resistant mode, from trouble. In other words, sometimes if someone is behaving in a way that causes a reaction to you, you feel like responding in the way you do. And so you are inspired, you might say. You just want to be aware of from what vibrational stance the inspiration is coming. You see what we're getting at? So there is no way around this other than to consciously acknowledge what the receiving mode feels like. Compliment yourself when you are there. Acknowledge the benefit of being there, not just because of the results that happen, but because of how good it feels along the way. And before you know it, you just become less willing to think the thoughts that will eventually lead to the more unwanted experience. It really is about practicing it. But we've never known anyone who was successful at shifting their vibration who did not understand vibrational basis of things. Almost everyone in your world is reacting to situations. So it's just a reaction to this and a reaction to this and a reaction to this. And we want you to realize that you didn't come as a reactor, you came as a creator. And so what you're wanting to do is, first thing in the morning, before there has been anything really for you to react to, do your best through meditation is a really good way to tune in to who you really are. And then, after you've tuned into who you really are, then you can begin reacting to the impulses that are coming from that. Such a good word. We haven't talked about reaction in this context with much depth. Is it of value to you? Can you feel it?
Awareness has been something which is built over time as my frequency has changed and I've done more meditation practices. And oftentimes now I may react and I'll go, damn it, I knew I should have caught it then. Is there any strategies or anything that we implement to be able to catch things quicker?
Yeah, acknowledging that you didn't catch it quicker is a good step in queuing yourself up to be ready earlier. But we want to insert another word into this conversation so that you can look at this in a different way. Let's use an example, not necessarily one that you're offering, where someone is suing you or negatively affecting you in some way, and you have a reaction about that. What we would like to say is that really what it is a continuation of a vibration. The things that are manifesting in your experience are actually reactions to a vibration that you've got going on. So in a world of law of attraction, isn't everything a reaction? Everything's a reaction to the vibration that you've got going on. That's really important to acknowledge. Can you feel how important that is? So in this continuum of reactions, you just got to decide to what do you want to react? And what vibration do you want to practice to which you know the universe will respond or react? And so someone sort of has to break the evil cycle. We're being playful with that word, because otherwise it's just a chain of pain. And someone has to decide, wait a minute, I'm not going to go the way of this momentum. I'm going to do something else, but I can't do it right now because the momentum is taking me. So I'm just going to take a hiatus from this conversation or from this topic. And I'm going to focus upon the things where my reaction and the universe's reaction to my reaction is what I want it to be. So let's not condemn reaction. Let's call it a natural consequence of the vibrational universe in which we are all focused. And instead, let's just talk about getting better at focusing and better at sending a signal to which the universe is going to react. And just be playful about it. That's really important. Esther started playing a game with herself where when wonderful things would happen, she would say, I did that. And when not wonderful things would happen, she would say, I did that too. Because there's something so empowering about accepting that you are doing it all and the universe is reacting to you. Now, it's fair to say, yeah, but I reacted to something else before I was offering a vibration that the universe was reacting to. And we say, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. So your questions are so important because you're saying, so how can I stop being that reactor? How can I change the vibration? We say, you just got to practice. And what's at the root of that is really caring how you feel. Finally, once and for all, not being willing to put up with negative emotions, even if they're not that strong. Most of you put up with stuff until it gets really big, and then you react in a stronger way. In other words, I'm just not going to put up with that anymore. Well, you could have had softer, subtler reactions all the way along that would have been less impactful for your experience. But it's all good, isn't it? Really? Isn't it all good? Isn't it all part of the process? Don't you kind of like figuring things out as you go? And so maybe the strongest thing that we'd like to say to you is if you can resist the temptation to beat up on yourself about things and just say, well, this is good, or I needed that, or that was good clarification for me, or I'm glad that happened because now I understand this, or now I put more into my vortex, or. In other words, just find a way of making peace with yourself. Do everything you can to make yourself feel better about yourself.
Is that the same when fear arises and it takes over?
Doesn't matter what it is. Fear is just a stronger momentum. Fear as opposed to frustration, or fear as opposed to even overwhelmment. Fear is an indicator of a stronger discord, which could mean some different things. It usually means this really matters to you and you're in opposition to it. And it also usually means that you've been practicing the vibration and you've allowed the momentum to become quite strong. That usually means that you could have stopped it at many opportunities at an earlier time. But there's a lot of justifying that almost everyone does about why you didn't. And usually it's just because you didn't take the time or because you're too busy. That's a big factor for so many of you. You get yourself so task-oriented and so time-sensitively task-oriented that you don't feel like you have the luxury of time to process things or to find a better thought. But you can soothe that a lot with a very small habit. And that is, if we were standing in your physical shoes, the first thing in the morning, we would decide before we sleep even, that in the morning we're going to get this day off in a more deliberate vibrational pattern. And we would wake up, drink and eat something, brush your teeth and wash your face and get yourself feeling comfortable. And then we would sit and quiet our mind for 15 minutes until any resistant vibration is no longer pressing. And then we would set forth gentle intentions about how we want to feel for this day. Esther will write things. We encouraged her some months ago to just pick one emotion that you really enjoy and focus on it for maybe as much as 5 minutes after you've meditated. And so Esther started out with the word fun. Fun. Just focused on fun. And just really said the word fun until the feeling of fun sort of began coming over her. And what she began to notice is that after a day or two or three of spending about 5 minutes just focused upon the idea of fun, fun things would occur to her, and she started scheduling more fun things to do for herself or for herself with others, just more fun things. And then once she had found the fun of that, then the word that she chose was clarity. I like the feeling of clarity. And in order to really amplify how nice the feeling of clarity is, she put it up against the feeling of confusion. And she played that game, confused or clear-minded. And there was something about that feeling of confusion. And then just to make sure that she was focusing it the way she meant to, she thought about that foggy feeling or that unfocused feeling where what did I do with my keys, or where is my phone, or what have I done with something? And then she thought, clarity. I know where my keys are. I know where I've put them. I know where my phone is. And then after a while it went further, that feeling of being in the right place at the right time, and the timing of saying something just right, and the meeting of other people who were there, and the parlaying of the idea up and up and up and up and up, till that feeling of clarity became sort of an intoxicating addiction, one that she almost was not willing to leave her room until she was sure that she had accomplished the feeling of clarity. And even though oftentimes she left her bedroom where she had been meditating and doing her processes before she had accomplished the feeling of clarity, because the feeling of clarity is a reaction to some things, isn't it? But just playing that game, she started noticing how clear she was, how easy the day unfolded, how good her timing was, how many things rendezvoused with her, and she knew that this process was working for her, you see. Jerry and Esther have a friend who is a therapist. She has lots of credentials, and she counseled, or at that time was counseling, quite a few people. And we were talking about the idea of scripting, which is like telling the story the way you want it to be, putting the components in it the way you like it. I did this and it felt like this, and then I did this and it felt like this. So this woman had some people who she was assisting, one of them her son, who is a really good carpenter. He makes finished furniture. He was the best around, but he didn't have any business. And so she just began focusing on him and thinking about his success, because it was pleasurable to do, much more pleasurable than reacting to his reality. And because he was removed enough from her, she took pleasure in this game. So she wasn't doing it to try to fix something. She was doing it for the pleasure that it gave her. And then she began noticing that his phone began ringing and things began happening, and she realized that she was amplifying something about him and meeting him on the level of his desire. And he was close enough to the vibration of his own receiving that it made a big difference in his experience. So the reason that we tell you this story is because we want you to realize that you have the potential of really uplifting anything that you turn your attention to, provided you can find that upliftment first. So this conversation of reacting, we just really are enjoying it because we want you to offer on purpose and then react to your own offering. We want you to realize that your inner being has an opinion about everything that you are living, and that the emotion that you are feeling is a reaction to those two vibrations. That's guidance, isn't it? If your inner being feels optimistic about something and you are not optimistic about it, you feel uncomfortable because you are feeling the reaction of those two vibrations. So we love that you feel deeply, and we love that you feel quickly. And now what we want to encourage is that you do something about what you feel, and what it always is leading towards a response. That's all. Just reach for a little better feeling thought every time you get that sensation, and then watch what happens. There are more hands now than in the beginning. What's up with that? for. So spinning there in this vibrational reality is a full version of everything you want. All the money, all the bodily conditions, all the feelings in relationships that you want, all of the material objects, everything is queued up vibrationally. And don't scoff at that, because everything that is manifested, including your Earth spinning in its orbit, spun in a vibrational reality first. The difference is, once you are here on this Earth, putting things into your vortex, the amount of time that it takes in your physical Earth terms between not showing up in your experience and showing up in your experience is no time. When you become a match to the vibrational vortex and all of those cooperative components that have been assembled, when you become a vibrational match to that, it is instantaneous. In the moment that you stop the resistance, the trail lights up. Now, we want you to understand that as creators, the lighted up trail is what you're looking for. You really don't want the instant manifestation. Can you imagine the absence of satisfaction that a sculptor would have if in the moment he touched the clay, it just became the statue? There's a clump, there's a clump, there's a clump, there's a clump, there's a clump. He wants to mold it. He wants to let it evolve. He wants to discover it. He wants to be part of it. And so do you. So when you get into the vortex, we're not saying that you will have an instant manifestation of what you want, although sometimes it seems that fast to you in relative terms. What we are saying is, when you get into the vortex, the trail lights up, your feeling of empowerment ensues, and the details begin to unfold as you follow the path and let your creative mind take you blissfully on the path of becoming that you've set into motion even before you stepped foot into this physical body. Creating is so delicious, and it's what we all are. And you came into these bodies intending to sift through the contrast in order to discover more desire. Sometimes as physical beings, you think you're here to struggle your way to success, and we say that cannot be. You can struggle your way into asking. You can suffer your way into knowing that you don't want that and that you want something else. And it's an interesting thing, because when you know what you don't want, an equivalent, equal, counter desire is always born. So this vortex of creation that you have put into motion is filled with the culmination of what life has caused you to create in your asking as you sifted through contrast. Ooh, wasn't that beautifully said? This vortex is full of the vibrational equivalent of the asking that your physical experience has inspired through the sifting of the contrast that you have discovered along your way. You've created a vibrational reality that you hold ownership to, that stands in readiness for you, that waits for you eternally. We think you should get it now, however. We don't think that you should wait anymore. We think it's time for you to get into the vortex and begin to reap the reward, to find the answers, to solve the problems, to feel the exhilaration, to be the being who you have created. We think it's time. And otherwise you can do it when you croak. It's your call. We're eager to talk with you about anything that is important to you. It is our desire to coax you into the vortex.
Thank you for everything. As my desires begin to manifest and unfold, I sometimes get anxiety, not anxiety, I don't know the word, but I see them starting to unfold, I get excited, and then they sort of slow down from manifesting.
Well, now let's talk about this, because you're really going to like this. We haven't spoken this in this way before, but then we haven't come to the place that we'd already come to before you said that before either. In other words, we just laid a really good new basis to understand this question in a new way. You're going to feel it in just a moment here. So, if it is true, and it is, that as a problem is coming into focus, a solution is too, then isn't it equally true that as a solution is in focus, that an equal problem is in focus too? In other words, have you ever seen a sound wave or a light wave or any kind of vibrational wave? There's two sides to the wave, aren't there? In other words, the wave, it has an equivalent. It can be small and it can be large, but it's equivalent in either case. So when you knew what you didn't want and now you know what you do want, so life is moving forward. Now, maybe on another subject, you're more focused on the negative side of the wave than you are the positive side of the wave. So maybe you've tuned yourself negatively. Let's back up. Here'll be an easier way to hear it. You can't set your radio dial on 6:30 a.m. and hear what's being broadcast on 98.7 FM. Frequencies have to match up. The transmitter and the receiver have to be in sync. So let's say that you have several subjects that you are focused upon, and on one particular subject that you've wanted a lot about, you now have managed for a little bit of time to focus more inside the vortex. And so now things are moving along for you in a better way. But because you're not really yet completely at one with maintaining your inside the vortex vibration, occasionally you slip off into another vibration. And when you do, you now have access to the other side, the not good feeling side of that wave. Doesn't that make sense to you? A lot of times people say, I'm afraid to let myself want something because I will be so disappointed if it doesn't come. Well, what that is that's an awareness that I want that and I don't want the opposite of it. But the fact that I really, really, really want it means I really, really, really don't want the opposite of it. And frankly, I was happier when I sort of wanted it and sort of didn't want the opposite of it. When I sort of wanted it, then I could be sloppy in my thinking and it wasn't painful. But now I really want it when I'm sloppy with my thinking. It's painful. And that's what makes people say, I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. As if it has to go bad. I just know it's going to go bad. It always goes bad for me. And we say, it depends on where you're focused. The potential for wondrous or awful things is yours in every moment. And it all depends on where you've trained yourself. So now, think of different people you know or different segments of society that you know. And think about what their waves are like. In other words, there are some people that don't let themselves dream big ever because they don't want the other side of it. And there are people who dream so big, who are sloppy in their thinking, that live really awful things. Isn't it remarkable how many really, really famous people at what seems to be the top of their game crash and burn so badly? And doesn't it make sense to you now that you understand the wave? So then you say, okay, I sort of get this. And I've decided not to be a deliberate creator after all. I'm going to play it safer. I'm just going to want a little. And we say, we should have told you sooner, but you now know too much. You can't go back. Life is parlaying you into fantastic things, you see. So what we're really talking about here is you got to focus. You got to focus because what's coming to you is coming in response to your allowance. And here's the thing that makes what we just said to you interesting and funny, but different than the way we were playing with it. And here's what we mean by this. You've already played your hand. You've already been living your life. You've already been asking and asking and asking and asking and asking and asking and asking. In other words, you've already put who you really are over here in this vortex of creation, and you really have no choice other than to get up to speed with who you are. So what you just said to us is, well, I've been letting myself get up to speed with who I am, but now I'm worried because I can't maintain it. And we say, you got to practice that. You'll crash and burn a few times, but all that'll do is make you more determined to focus until you'll reach the place where it will matter to you that you focus inside the vortex. Give us more.
I don't have little desires, I have huge desires.
Yes.
So I see them starting to happen. And
Yes.
then I have friends and family start calling me and has that, how we're so excited and can you give us an update? And I try to just stay away because I can feel their anxiety.
Here's the thing, this will help you a lot. If anybody's having an anxiety, it's because they're looking for the manifestational evidence. And this is a really good idea for you to hold relative to where you're at. This is the precise piece that will soothe this for you. This vortex of creation, it's the vibrational foundation for all of the good that manifests. And when you have full view of it, that's when you feel utter faith, because that faith is knowledge in something not yet seen. And the reason you can't see it is because it's pre-manifested. But there is so much that is wonderful that is pre-manifested that you can feel. Did you get that? Now, for somebody outside the vortex, what they heard us just say was, you have to trust us, and we've just got a different version of the fairy tale for you. And so we can understand why from outside the vortex, skepticism and cynicism and pessimism would be something that you are feeling. But if you can accept the reality of this vortex of creation, and you can realize that when your friends and family and well-wishers are coming to you, you can't give them the evidence yet, but you can give them your emotional, vibrational version of it. And so what they're reaching for from you is your feeling of elation, your feeling of optimism, your feeling of knowing. Have you ever been part of something where there was a leader who knew even before there was manifestation, and that leader just knew so clearly that you knew too, and couldn't you ride the current of that knowing? And weren't there always those naysayers who couldn't see it and couldn't feel it, who were determined that it wasn't going to come to be? But because someone knew, and because you knew they knew, then you knew a little too? That's the best that you can do for those people, because almost everybody is demanding. That's why science and medicine moves slowly forward, is because they need to see it before they believe it. And that's backwards. You got to believe it before you can see it. You have to believe it in order to get in the vortex, and you've got to get in the vortex before you can see it, before you can rendezvous with the circumstances and events that are going to bring the manifestation of it about, you see. It's really interesting. This reality that humans claim and cling to is such an arbitrary thing. You are billions of people with billions of different perspectives of life experience, literally creating billions of different worlds, and yet pretending that it's all one big world that you're all sharing equally. And it's not even close to that, you see. You are on these vibrational islands with law of attraction spinning on your individual vortices, giving you exactly what you are a vibrational match to. So the first thing that we would say to you is, if we were standing in your physical shoes, would leave them all out of the equation, well-wishers or not. Because if you need to prove to them what they need to see, then they've got you focused outside the vortex, and that's why you feel a diminishment of your joy. So somehow you have to convince them that you're onto something, and you know you're onto something. We know that they are well-meaning, and we know that you know that they are well-meaning. We're just saying, you got to do what's easiest to keep you focused in the vortex. So if someone says, how you doing? You say, tune in the frequency. You say, well, how's it coming? Great, I feel great. What have you got to show for it? Joy. Well, what else you got to show for it? Vitality, clarity. What else you got to show for it? All that you're doing, what do you have to show for the work that you've been doing? Enthusiasm, life, passion. That all? And what they're really saying to you, don't you think paying this price of joy is too great? Someone might even say to you, well, you seem really, really happy, and you seem like you've got the world by the tail, but I don't see any evidence of well-being in your life. You say, wait, everything I want is because I think in having it I will feel better. And now I found a way to feel better even before it comes. You say, yeah, that's what I'm saying. It hasn't come. What a lot of people on this path say is, all the things I thought I needed to manifest in order to be joyful, I felt joy before they manifested. But then they manifested. In other words, they can't not come.